invite Maya Ballén to share her experiences.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Paulo, for inviting me to share the work and to be able to work together and share the work of everyone. And thank you, Renaud, for your presentation. Very challenging and interesting, especially, I think, for my maybe fetishistic approach to objects. I will share my screen. As Paulo said, we have had a very strong training tradition with models, and like most architects, I have worked with models as representation. The model would always be copying, imitating, or projecting a reality that was somewhere else. And at some point, I found strange for me or not so interesting to be doing something with my hands, but not completely trusting the object as a tool. I felt that I was absent in my relation with the object and was continually focused in an imagined reality and always doing the equivalences. Working on an object that is here, but not really working on that object, not really trusting the tool, but always doing these abstract equivalences with a reality that was there. In this course that I have been doing with students for almost 10 years now, we propose the students to trust the tool. I see this as an alternative way for students to position themselves in relation to the model and to use it for their projects, to freeze momentarily doing the equivalences with reality and to trust that responding to the materiality of the model is okay. And that the equivalences will meet, but they will meet differently. In this sense, the model is similar to a sculpture in the sense that it's a one-to-one relationship to the materiality that you respond to. The course is designed for students of arts and architecture. This is guided by me. I'm an architect, and Erika Vasquez, who is a sculptor. And it's hosted in the art department for most of its time. And in the architecture school last year during the pandemic. So we invite the students to leave aside the materials they already know and to use materials they are curious about. Here, the challenge was to think the topography through sedimentation and stacking instead of a stable material. It's always an experiment. This is bad quality plaster and tint, which cracked and continued to change colors as days went by. This I'm going to show is a range of things and materials the students have engaged with. This is earth. This is clay, paper, and sillar, which is a white porous stone from Arequipa. We also ask students to photograph the models as sculpture and as models. This has proved very interesting for us, especially since we work architects and artists, to always be like being aware of that they have that that it's a choice how they see the object and how they present the object as an object. Or as a model. As a sculpture. Or as a model. Last year, when we thought it would be difficult for students to do physical models, we asked them to create installations and to photograph them. All these models were fabricated within a model seminar in Taller 5 of Renato Manrique and Vincent Guillerat. So these are kind of found object models. These are ephemeral models that exist in image only. They are staged, but still the experience of making is spatial and architectural. I feel that this somehow relates to what Luis Jaime shared yesterday, where the lifespan of a model serves a ritual, which is after which it is intentionally destroyed. This is a very banal ritual compared to the load of the architectural remains, but still it is a completely different approach to a model as a precious object. And it was interesting what happened last year. Although the models were physical, we could only share them through images. And therefore the objects were less fixed and rather the objects performed for the photographs. I have named the following works model as performance. These pieces were not designed as such, but they have a similar approach, and I have grouped them together because this is what I'm interested to continue to develop in the future. These objects enter to life when manipulated. They are nothing when not in use and exist only when someone plays with them. These objects are literally like props for a performance. Here, the Amazon River changes its course in the different seasons. This is a realist model of the main Pachacamac island. And here are different iterations to explore the island's relation to the shore and the open sea when placed on a piece of fabric. This was an experiment with a composition using abandoned models taken from the school. And this is the remnant of the action. And this is a urban fabric dice game, a throw of dice of urbanism chance. So this course has changed over time. It used to be more centered around matter, which was like the first images that I showed you. And now I'm more interested in the possibility of an ephemeral model that produces less waste, but it's still a physical experience. And also a model that exists only when used. So this is what I'm planning to continue on working.
Thank you, Maya. Can I Sorry that I start, it's not very polite, but I would like to ask you if you can develop a little bit more about the idea of trusting the medium, and how do you conceive the trust of the medium? It's a question of, because in your presentation, I have thought trying to make a parallel with drawing, a little bit like this but because there is the fetish of the plan, but it's the maquette, but it's also the fetish of the apunte. How do you say apunte? Of the sketch, no? Which I think is kind of closer to what you mean by trust of the medium, no? A certain continuity, mind, body, and something else. Well, and now I'm putting words. No, erase the words. Just if you can develop a little more of how do you understand this idea of trusting the model, trusting the medium, no, or the tool. I don't.
Yes. This is something that we always propose students, and some of them like jump in the car with us, and some of them don't. No, as usually happens with students. We do first exercises in groups with students of architecture and art together, so that they jump into a material. For students of architecture is more difficult to just trust in the material. So this working together is really, I like it. I think that it's useful. It works. And I am most of the models that I've shown are like are not design processes in the sense that we use for architecture school, because they are like precious things. But in this course, we have time not to be so attached to the design process, but to be more attached with the thing. So even if they are precious, they are not a finished building. They are part of a process. They are a sketch, but just like a very felt in deep in relationship with matter. And what we always talk about in class is that, no, it's just like to have trust that what they learn through the material will have consequences when this becomes a building. So just kind of like freeze doing the equivalences, just to be able to connect to the material and to respond to the material, and to stop doing the equivalences all the time.
Thank you. Luis Jaime, please.
Okay, wonderful, thought-provoking. This has been really interesting. Really interesting. I mean, the concept of performance is something very interesting. I have a former student that is a part-time professor in Católica, Luis Muro, that wrote his dissertation in Stanford on performance and rituals associated with death. And he worked with some of the things that you're doing. I think that it would be nice if you could meet him. Luis Muro. Okay.
He's a dancer too, no?
He's a dancer too. Yeah, he's a performer. Yeah, he was a professional folk dancer when he was a student. Yeah, he danced in Brisas del Titicaca. So I mean, as an archaeologist, you have a perspective that is most of the time is framed in two dimensions, time and space. So everything has to be bound by time and space. See, I mean, any assertion you make has to be defined in terms of time and space, when and where. Yeah, and if we take that into account, one thing that is important is that ancient civilizations are paperless civilizations. So the notion of 2D is as foreign for them as, I mean, as for us would be what they were living. So for them, three-dimensionality is easier than two-dimensionality, you see? Because if you don't have paper, the only option you have is to paint in a wall, and probably your neighbors wouldn't like that. And the other option you have is to go about painting in textiles, and we know that they use textiles, I mean, to the limit. They basically dress in rags because textiles are not, I mean, easily available. So 3D and modeling clay, for instance, is a normal thing. It would be equivalent for us as writing on a piece of paper. And that changes things. So if I mean, if you think that clay and not paper is the standard medium, then a number of possibilities open up, because you are going to experience everything we do. We teach children to draw, we teach children color, we teach children, I mean, to capture reality in paper, in 2D, but they probably did the same in 3D normally. So we find in archaeological context little figurines, probably done by children or animals and things, that are probably the things that they were playing with. And you usually find that in trash. So when it comes to the time to make a symbolic form, to embed with meaning, something, the medium that they would choose to do that is 3D. So the idea of performing to produce meaning, for instance, what I was talking about yesterday that you mentioned, if I want to acknowledge something or some relationship, Maya and her course of modeling, I would not do it on a piece of paper. I would do it on a clay model, and the clay model is going to be my medium. I mean, that is a really important thing, because I think that because we are so bound by paper and by 2D, we think that is a normal, and that is not the normal. Not for them. So again, time and space take a frontal stage here. Yeah. For them, the normality would be this kind of three-dimensional representation. And think about it, because it's three-dimensional, it has other possibilities. It has one dimension more than the one we use. So when you try to teach children to draw a house, you're forcing them to transform a three-dimensional object and into a two-dimensional representation, which many times for many children is a mess, because they don't have that. And actually, we think that they should be able to look at things as we do, because it's skewed proportions and perspectives and things like that. And of course, my 10-year-old, I mean, when he was younger, he really had a lot of trouble doing that. And it was interesting because her arts professors or teachers in school didn't understand that limitation. So let's go back to the Moche times and to pre-Columbian times, where everything was two-dimensional. I mean, in the coast of Peru, there was no wood, very little wood. And even if you had wood, carving wood is not an easy process. You need tools that are really specialized. And in a society like ours that only have copper, carving wood is not easy, because copper is more brittle and easy to break than wood. And the woods here, because it's a desert, are extremely hard. So your options, again, are limited, you see. The only medium, stone, forget it, there's very little stone in the coastal plains. And if you find stone, it's going to be really hard. So it's a different thing. Stone is something that comes in when the state appears, and when the state can actually co-opt the work of people to do permanent work, when you include a new dimension in terms of time, and that is the possibility to transcend time. So then the state is the one that actually goes about doing these type of things. Well, there are older things, but basically that's what we see with the Inca. So then I mean, creating the model is not I mean, it's a multifaceted thing, ¿no es cierto? Because models are not necessarily representations of reality, no? And I think that this idea of, I mean, we discussed a while ago the notion that there are models from architecture and models for architecture, no? So from architecture is a model that imitates something that it already exists, while for architecture is a model that actually gives you an idea of how things should look when built, no? But that is too architectural. Sorry, Paulo. No, that is looking at the world only from the perspective of architects. No, I think that modeling is something that is done for many other reasons. No, to play. Child is going to, if they don't have paper, they're going to model. I mean, to play, to create reality. No, and also, I mean, in this world where they lived, it is likely that they were constructing meaning by using models. And I think that is a subject that in itself is very powerful. No? What do you create? What is the purpose of that creation? And what are I mean, what are your tools in terms of standards? How are you going to do things? No? And this notion of the creation of as performance, no, is interesting, no? In Alejo Carpentier's El viaje de la semilla, remember there's a passage where they say that the ring was sent to be, no, para desgravar el anillo, no? So this couple that was getting married, because all the story is going backwards, no, sent the rings to be ¿cómo se diría? No sé, desgravados, no? And then the ring was produced in the night with moon. You see, so those are concepts that are hard to grasp, no, but they clearly have meaning, no. One thing that we discovered when we were doing a project in Nazca a while ago is that the Nazca lines can be seen at night, no, and most likely some of them were meant to be seen at night, because at night, in a full moon night, I mean, it's very bright, and the dark background versus the white line comes out immediately, you see. So think about it. I mean, if the Nazca lines were done so that you could actually use them only at night, that's the setting where things are produced. I mean, we have been missing the whole point. I mean, the idea of looking at them from an airplane, I mean, yeah, but that's not what they were meant to be like. So I'm only saying that your idea of linking object and performance, modeling and performance, modeling and context, no, production and destruction, I think are super powerful and should be continued. I mean, it's really interesting, you know, that type of stuff. And in that sense, finally, you know, the process that we are doing of mapping sites with drones and stuff is none other than another performance, you know, that we are doing now. We're conducting this performance with rules, you know, as to how to go about it and how to communicate. But it's finally, these are symbols of our capacity to do this. These are symbols of our interest of preserving this stuff. These are symbols. I mean, I love toys. I collect toys. You know, I collect Legos and Playmobiles. I love miniatures, like Andrew does. No, so for me, when we could actually create these virtual miniatures on the screen, that really was fascinating. No, and the aesthetics of that is fascinating. People love models. People really love models. They spend hours and hours looking at models, many times more so than they would do with a building. No, so because for some reason these small things, you know, are like puppies. No, they are unavoidable. You have to love them. No? So thank you very much. These are really powerful ideas to continue.
Thank you. I was, and also Nazca lines were meant to be walked on, no? Were meant to be a ritual. Yeah, all these, I have never planned a model as performance in the courses, but when students came with something like performance for their final projects, I have stimulated that. So it's just now that I have collected some things, no, and that I want to work on this idea of experiencing space, of doing the model, and by having the experience of architecture and space. And then the performance is a communication tool.
Performance is also power. You see, why? Because if you build something, it's there. Everybody can use it back and forth. But if you create a ritual and perform a ritual and materialize ideas with a ritual, and the ritual is gone, then you need to have the resources and the power to do it again. You see? So
or
many
the instructions.
Yeah, so when you have to decide where to put your resources, you can build something or you can perform something. And you would think that performing is a wasteful event because you're going to spend a lot of resources in something that goes away. You see? But ephemerality has that notion. That it's not only a representation of how fragile the life is, but actually it's very clearly related with the fact that appropriation is not possible with something that is ephemeral. I mean, co-opting, somebody taking it away from you is not possible. You will have to have the same kind of resources, power, capacity to convey people, in order to do it again. So these recurring rituals, in Bali, they have these amazing funerary rituals every year that they have where everybody, I mean, all the structured power is performed, but it's gone. I mean, they invest a lot of money, like the Rio Carnival, you see, and it's gone. You say, why are you not preserving those floats, those dresses? No, because the notion is to have the power to doing it again.
Yes, and also like in a very artistic sense of the canon, performances can be instructions too, for someone else to perform, and also thinking of communication tools. When we see models, in generally we cannot access to models physically. Most of the models that we know, we see them in images as well,
We, but not them.
Well, yes, but it's not as if a model is so universally accessed.
Yeah, but one thing is to see a bunch of pictures of the Procesión del Señor de los Milagros, and another thing is to be there. You see, one thing is to, so I mean, remember, time and space. For an archaeologist, everything is bound by these two criteria. So in a way, a movie is like a model of reality that you can run over and over again. It's a model of something, of a tale, of a narrative. You see, another thing is to be there.
Frédéric?
No.
Tu n'as pas. We have here Frédéric, who is also a fetishist of his own medium, which is drawing. In fact, he's also putting much confidence in his drawing. We know that because he teach architecture with drawing, and he pushes students to have confidence in the drawing and in the complexity of the traces sketched on the paper. So it's tu ne sens pas interpellé par la démarche, Frédéric? You need to put your microphone on.
Voilà. Vous m'entendez? Oui, tu as tout à fait raison. Et c'est toujours une réflexion profonde pour moi. Justement, le rapport entre la présence physique d'une maquette et l'abstraction et la présence physique du dessin. Et je prends comme, je dirais, comme discours radical vis-à-vis des étudiants de dire que le dessin ne peut que projeter. et donc qu'il ne sert aucunement à communiquer, par exemple. C'est une posture, hein, mais que je trouve intéressante à partir du moment où on dit que même le dessin qui est finalement destiné à être vu, je sais pas, bon, on parle du dessin, je dirais, du nuage de dessin de l'esquisse dont tu parlais, mais jusqu'au dessin abstrait, en fait. Et donc ici, la question des maquettes abstraites m'intéresse au même titre. Et parce que puisque, comme tu dis, j'ai une confiance aveugle dans le dessin et même hors de l'architecture, j'ai tendance à ne pas faire confiance à la maquette parce qu'elle a un temps de retard. Et là, elle nécessite de la manipulation, une manipulation qui la fait tenir. Le dessin n'a pas besoin d'une manipulation qui la fait tenir, il a besoin d'une manipulation qui l'épaissit. Et pour moi, une maquette est difficile. C'est une question de nature, peut-être un mental de ma part, mais une maquette est difficile à faire se produisant, toujours en... Et les exemples que Maya a montrés, je trouve, sont très intéressants à ce point de vue-là, c'est qu'on sent l'espèce de... toujours de situation se faisant. Et moi, c'est ça qui m'intéresse. Même dans le dessin, que le dessin soit toujours ouvert. Je prends toujours le terme de Umberto Eco, hein, donc le dessin que tous peuvent projeter au-delà de celui qui le dessine. Et donc la maquette doit avoir à mon sens, cette même qualité, cette même caractéristique. Et donc voilà, c'est vrai que je pars du postulat que la communication des choses, des artefacts qu'on essaye d'édifier ou de concevoir, que la communication n'a rien à faire dans cette histoire. C'est un postulat peut-être un peu fort, mais qui permet de voir clair, quoi.
See, no, I just wanted to react to what some of the stuff that Jaime have said about, what made me think is the idea if the very idea of 2D, 3D is not a consequence of 2D thinking, which is, I am not sure if 3D is the appropriate way to name this complete experience of body and things or places, no? And looking at the importance in Moche culture of about drawing, I don't know if it's a question of surfaces and space, or maybe it's another ways of finding the terms, which is in architecture 2D and 3D. It's quite important, at least in its more extended Occidental and Oriental traditions, no? But even though I think, and that's why I focus on the mountain vessels, in the Moche culture, the discussion of the representation in 2D, in the 2 dimension, the 3-dimensional, there are objects that discusses that difficulty. So there is even in the Moche culture a space for that kind of discussion, at least in the representational, in the object that represents other objects, no? Which is I found quite interesting the Moche, this moment in which how to represent in a frontal view, for not say 2D, in a frontal space, the complexity of the whole. It's a question that at least one artist, saying, continuing with your argument, that at least one artist or two maybe discussed during the Moche period, no? The classical Moche period.
Yes, what I find very... Do you hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. What I find very interesting in your work, Maya, is that the double perspective, seeing, looking at the model as a sculpture, then looking at the model as a building. And I think it's very interesting for the trainer, for the students, because even for realistic people like me, who claims that drawing and models are transparent, I think there are moments when you need to look at your drawings and to look at your models in order to let something appear from it. And I think that this double perspective as a sculpture, as a model, is a good way to exercise le regard, le regard des étudiants.
To be more aware.
To be more aware, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yes, it's very interesting and it's beautiful also.
It's one of the reasons, no? You named the first day the aesthetic reason. No, but I think we should stop here. But I found it quite interesting. This I would say this disciplinary road, which we know is so rigorously taken, and these questions about that poses Maya about the model and the experience, that they are not necessarily disciplinary, but we understand it as maybe necessary or productive or open, or I think they allow, because I think they challenge the idea of project. No, I think the very idea of trusting the medium is a process which is maybe challenges the very idea of project, of projection. No, as a way of doing. No, it's another way of doing, of getting there. No, and I think the opposition, the combination, or because I don't know if it's now it's an opposition, but the combination of these two presentations is most rich and yes, I will be productive for the future of the seminar. Let's say I will propose to stop for 10 minutes. I don't know if you prefer 10 or 15, but 10 is okay, no? Yes, so at 10:40, we meet again for discussing the future of the seminar. And thank you all. Thank you for all the participants in Facebook and YouTube. We'll see you the next seminar.